Happy November, folks, and welcome back to #AskGSM here today, episode 518 for November 1st, 2023. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, had a great Halloween last night, and are having a great week. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get right into it here as we start off the new month with Micah Does It from YouTube. Their first question was, WWE has announced Bash in Berlin in August of 2024. What would be your top 3 matches for the show if you had the pen? I mean, that's almost a year away, 9 months away. Anything can change between now and then. WrestleMania plans, the draft, people coming, people leaving. Anything can change in the next 9 to 10 months. So I'm not even going to begin to speculate, but I will say this, which is a pretty obvious answer. Gunther's got to be in the main event. I don't know if it's... By that point, he will not be the Intercontinental Champion. Obviously, he broke the record a while ago. There's no reason for him to still be the Intercontinental Champion come next fucking August. He's either losing the championship, in my opinion, probably either at the Rumble, maybe at Mania, but the thing with Mania is that I would like him ideally. Punk's not coming back. I'm not even saying Punk should win the Rumble. Probably wouldn't send the best message anyway. And I'm not saying, oh, he's definitely coming back in the Rumble, or he's definitely going to be back at Survivor Series, whatever. I'm just saying it's a possibility. My pick remains, because if it's not Gunther winning the Rumble, I'm not sure who it is. I would not boo, I would not be upset if it was Cody Rhodes. We have not, I would appreciate someone fresh, but it would make sense for him to get from point A to point B by winning the Royal Rumble. He can earn that match with Roman Reigns another way by winning Elimination Chamber, or just straight up challenging him, storyline-wise. Just saying, listen, you didn't beat me fair and square. Let's do this match straight up again. If you beat me, whatever. I can never challenge for a world championship again. Like, it's fucking Full Gear 2019 in AEW. Then by that point, he would have to win, obviously. But, I guess obviously he didn't win in AEW. They wouldn't acknowledge that anyway. But anyway. If Cody won the Rumble for the second straight year, I would not be upset. I know this isn't your question. I'm just bringing it up quickly. Because we haven't seen a repeat Royal Rumble winner since when? Fucking 95. Or no, Stone Cold would have been the last one, right? 97, 98. Because in 2000, Rock won it. In 99, Vince won it. And then in 01, Austin won it again. But he won it back-to-back. I think the last time would have been 98, 97 with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So it's been a long time, over 25 years. I would not be upset if they did it again with Cody Rhodes. That being said, I would ideally like to see Gunther win the Rumble by lastly eliminating Cody Rhodes. Kind of a reverse of what we saw this past year with him and Cody. With him losing last, Gunther this past year, now winning by beating Cody Rhodes, and then losing the Intercontinental Championship on that same show earlier in the evening, maybe kicking off the show with Chad Gable beating him. You can have him lose it at WrestleMania, but that's a really long time. And he has more than enough opponents. You can do rematches with all these other people, like Bronson. The Miz is being groomed for an Intercontinental Championship opportunity, which I don't honestly hate. I'll talk more about that on WrestleRant Radio tomorrow. I would prefer he win the Rumble and face Rollins at Mania for the World Heavyweight Championship, because I don't really know what that Mania match looks like. I assume Rollins will be involved in whatever the World Heavyweight title match at Mania is, whether he's chasing or challenging or defending, whatever. We're already getting Rollins and Drew now, so that's not an option. Orton and Rollins, like a rivalry revisited almost 10 years later. Yeah, maybe not at Mania. They've already had a Mania match with the roles reversed, maybe. Yeah, that's possible. I just think Gunther and Rollins makes the most sense. They've stayed apart. They had one match on Raw 4 years ago, almost exactly 4 years ago in the build-up to Survivor Series 2019. No one remembers that. But, I think that's the Mania match to do. And by then, so hopefully by Bash in Berlin, he will be the World Heavyweight Champion. If he loses, the World Heavyweight Championship at Mania, or the Intercontinental Championship, rather, he can then win the World Heavyweight title at Bash in Berlin. Maybe he wins Money in the Bank, and he chooses to cash in on his home country, at Bash in the Berlin. He's from Germany, right? I'm not fucking stereotyping here. I'm pretty sure he's from Germany. If he's not, I apologize. But yeah, I think that'd be the match to do. I don't know who it's against. It's either him and Rollins on that show. If we get that at Mania, maybe not. Him and Roman Reigns is a match I still would like to see. I just don't know what that looks like. I don't think Gunther goes to SmackDown next year, and I don't think Roman goes to Raw. Hopefully by that point, Roman Reigns is no longer the fucking world champion on SmackDown. We never know. We just don't know. Gunther beating Roman in Berlin would be amazing. I don't see that happening. It should be Cody Rhodes at Mania next year. The rematch, Cody should have won this past year. I digress. Gunther and Roman is also a possibility. I don't know if Roman would challenge Gunther and then Gunther beats him. I don't know, but Gunther's got to be in the main event. Regardless of whatever else is on that card, who he's facing, he's got to be in the main event. His second question, should WWE do an Iron Survivor Championship Scramble match on the main roster? Yeah, at some point I wouldn't mind seeing it. Honestly, this is just me. I'm probably in the minority on this one. I didn't hate when WWE did the Scramble matches back in 2008. It's been 15 years, I know. I was watching WWE at the time. I was new into wrestling at that point. I liked the idea of the concept. I didn't actually watch the match itself until years later on the network because I wasn't buying the pay-per-views back then. It took me a long time to finally watch the match. It does get confusing, so I could see why they went away from it. And they also did 3 on the same show. That was overkill. 1 would have been fine. They brought it back one more time at the Bash the following year for the ECW Championship. Also a fine, fun match. I think I really like the idea of the Iron Survivor match. They did 2 at NXT Deadline last year, and both were really good. NXT seems like a nice place to kind of revive these concepts to see if they work or if they don't work. A lot of these revived concepts, even like the Raw Underground match, which was NXT Underground a couple of months ago, worked in NXT. Would it work on the main roster? Probably not, depending on who it is. But you never know. I do think an Iron Survivor match, if they did it again in the main roster, again, with the right circumstances and they don't kill it. Like War Games was a revived concept. It worked in NXT and they brought it to the main roster last year and it worked as well. I think Iron Survivor would be, to me, no exception. I think it's worth another shot. They're not going to do it anytime soon. I don't think they're doing it at Deadline, I would imagine, again, come the NXT Deadline show at the end of the year next month. But at some point, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it back on the main roster and them trying it out. His third question, is Avengers Infinity War Marvel's best movie? And if not, what is and which is your favorite? I think it's a toss-up. To me, it's Endgame. One of my favorite movies of all time, probably my second favorite movie of all time. Number 1 will always be Back to the Future 2, but really the whole trilogy. I think Endgame is too. It beat out Ghostbusters when it came out. I love Ghostbusters. Literally just rewatched it last night. A 5-star movie in my opinion, as is Endgame. I think Endgame's an amazing movie. There's a lot of people that I know still prefer Infinity War, and that's fine too. Infinity War is also high up there on my list. They're probably just tied for both being 2 5-star movies. A lot of great Marvel movies, not a lot of great ones in recent years, obviously. I'm not completely falling at it. I mean, I love them. I still love Marvel. I watch all the shows, movies. I keep up on everything. I'll be watching the Marvels in a couple weeks, or is that next weekend, actually? No, I would say personally, Endgame is their best movie because it was the culmination. And just because it's the culmination doesn't necessarily make it the best, but I don't know. I just thought they paid off a lot of great stuff. The ending to Infinity War was amazing because I kind of figured it would end on a note like that, but you didn't really believe it until it happened, and it was just surreal. That was just an amazing movie. They're both just fantastic pieces of business. I would go Endgame with Infinity War a very close second, but if you reverse that, there's really no wrong answer there. Beyond those 2 obvious answers of those being my favorite and the best, I would also go Guardians. Guardians is probably number 3. The original Guardian. I mean, actually all 3 of them. Again, it's probably a Back to the Future situation. I loved all 3 movies. The first one, the second one was excellent, and that was probably the weakest of the 3. And even that was a great movie. And then the third one, which came out earlier this year, was amazing. So the Guardians movies are my favorite. And they're not even really, like, entrenched in the MCU. I mean, if you told me they weren't, they are MCU movies, but they just feel so different than everything else in Marvel in the MCU to where just they really stand out. And the characters are great, and the chemistry is amazing, and the humor is really well done. As well as Ragnarok's a great movie. I also really like Winter Soldier. There's a lot of great ones. A lot of great MCU movies. It's kind of hard to rank them all. No Way Home would also be high up on that list. The latest Spider-Man movie from a couple of years ago. Just the experience of seeing that on opening day. The hype for it was unreal, and the movie itself was awesome, and we all came out of it super happy about the movie itself and that it exceeded expectations, that it had surprises, humor, everything. Just a fantastic movie. Again, you didn't ask me for a top 5, but like among my favorite Marvel movies, and they've probably have changed in recent years, but all the Guardians movies, Infinity War, Endgame, the first Avengers film from 2012, Ragnarok, No Way Home, and Winter Soldier would probably be among my favorites. And those are like, probably six, top 7. I don't know. There's a lot of MCU movies. Chris L. from Facebook, their first question was, last week Ric Flair made his debut on AEW Dynamite. I'm sorry, actually, Nike Only's got a question here. I completely skipped over Nike Only. I'll get to you in a second, Chris. Nike Only, I apologize. This was a funny question. If you had the opportunity, and this was from YouTube, if you had the opportunity to eat dinner for Thanksgiving, in conversation with these 5 families, which one would you choose? Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes, Undertaker and Michelle McCool, Montez Ford and Bianca Belair, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and The Miz and Maurice. This was a really funny, good question. It's honestly really tough to say. I would probably say dead last would be Taker and Michelle McCool. I don't know what those conversations are going to look like. Listen, Taker, anytime I've ever interacted with Taker, he's actually been great to me, and he would probably be cool to sit down with. At the same time, we've seen him out of his element for so long now, it really wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. Cody and Brandy, again, any interaction which have been brief that I've had with Cody has been great. Just a really funny guy. I just feel like Brandy Rhodes is really fucking boring. So she kind of ruins that. I mean, no offense to Brandy, but I just don't feel like she's the most exciting person to have a conversation with. I'm sure she's really nice. So that eliminates those 2 couples. It comes down to the last 3. Again, any interaction I've had with Montez and Bianca, they're both amazing people. I feel like that'd be a nice, respectful dinner, and Montez is also always crazy too, so I'm sure that'd be entertaining. Maybe throw in Angelo Dawkins. I gotta go either Triple H and Stephanie or The Miz and Maurice, though. I just feel like The Miz and Maurice are so fun to hang out with if you watch Miz and Mrs. Miz is a fucking riot. I would probably go Triple H and Stephanie just because I feel like with Miz, he would get too obnoxious after a certain point. And he seems like a really nice, down-to-earth dude sometimes, but what if he's not? What if he's not nice, but what if he's always like just constantly obnoxious the entire time? What if he doesn't calm down? I feel like Triple H and Stephanie, you'd have to be on your toes at all times, trying not to fuck up or say the wrong thing. But you said not only dinner, but also a conversation. If we're like really laying it down, like what are we talking about is the question. And what are they going to answer? We're not going to get right into it as soon as the first course comes down on the table. But, what are we going to get into by the second or third course? What are we talking about around coffee and dessert? I mean, I don't drink coffee. I'll have coffee ice cream, but that's a separate conversation for a different day. I'd probably go Triple H and Stephanie. I just think that'd be surreal. I know you could say the same thing about Taker, but like you can ask Triple H and Stephanie anything, question mark? Like not anything inappropriate, but like, can you ask them a question about like the McMahon family drama? Would they kick you out after that? Would that be appropriate? I'm not interviewing them. This isn't on the record. I'm just kind of curious. Plus, you're talking about dinner here. I feel like all of these people are super fucking rich, but I feel like you would get the best Greenwich Thanksgiving dinner from Triple H and Stephanie. They would all feed you well in their very nice fucking homes. Triple H and Stephanie would not leave you hungry when it was over. So I'm going to go Triple H and Stephanie, but all these answers, all these options are great, and they're all great couples. And if you maybe on a different day, I would say Miz and Maurice, but today I'm going to go Triple H and Stephanie. From the McMahon family drama, like, are they there? Are Vince and Shane there at the table with us? God forbid Linda McMahon? Like, there's so many questions. Chris L. from Facebook. This is who I was going to jump over Nike Only for a second ago. I apologize to Nike Only and now Chris. So Chris's first question. Last week, Ric Flair made his debut on AEW Dynamite, and as expected, it got a very mixed to negative response online. I even saw people call it laughable and not worth the hype of a surprise, even though Tony Khan never hyped it up as a big deal. I mean, he actually did hype it up as a big deal. Tony Schiavone did too. Tony Khan hyped it up as a big deal because he always everything he talks about is a big deal. So just want to say that. Specifically, Tony Schiavone's like, we've never had anything like this in wrestling before. It's like, it was Ric Flair. Anyway, he continues. I know Flair doesn't have the cleanest record in his recent behavior and sexual assault back in 2002, puts him in an awful light, but do you think it's hypocritical that the fans condemn Flair for what he has done in the past, but give a pass to the horrible things Logan Paul has done in his? The truth is, Logan Paul might be a great athlete, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he's a terrible person. What are your thoughts? I mean, I don't see a lot of wrestling fans defending Logan Paul's personal behavior. And also, not a lot of wrestling fans are getting super stoked, Logan Paul's back. I like Logan Paul. The thing with, I'm not, as a person, I don't really know him from a hole in the wall. I met him for like 15 minutes about a year ago. He was cool to me. Doesn't make him a great person, generally, with other people, but I've heard the stories about shit that he's done. I've seen stuff that he's done, whatever. I can't really talk about that. Even Ric Flair, I don't know the guy personally. I don't fucking how he is. I don't know how he is now. Maybe he's improved. I don't think so. He never really apologized for this stuff that he was, the stuff that was dug back up from '02, which, digging stuff back up from 20 years ago is silly in and of itself, but that was warranted, and he never really apologized or showed any guilt for it. Maybe he did 20 years ago. It doesn't matter. The biggest difference between the two, though, is that with Logan Paul, the guy actually has worth to WWE. There's stuff they can do with him. He's a draw. He does his job very well. Not that Ric Flair didn't, but the guy is, 70-something years old at this point? He has no worth to AEW at all. It's not a matter of, if it is with some people, then you're right. If it's a matter of, Ric Flair's such a bad person, I don't want him on television, and then Logan Paul, it's like, I want him to win the United States Championship. I don't really mind his bad behavior. If people are talking about that, then you're right. That is hypocritical. That's not my problem with Ric Flair being in AEW. It's not the fact that he's an awful person. I mean, that dark side of that happened in '02, but it was dug back up 2 years ago. They probably thought it died down enough to bring him in. I have no interest. Even if Ric Flair wasn't burned a couple of years ago, I still have no desire to see him on television. I mean, the guy was used up as a manager 10 years ago. His last real run with Charlotte was probably the last of-note thing that he did back in 2016. And then after that, any appearance he's made since then has kind of just been sad. Like, he's just a sad old man. It doesn't help that he puts his fucking foot in his mouth, the shit that he says on Twitter and on podcasts and stuff like that in interviews. He just doesn't have the greatest opinions sometimes. But I'm not saying, get him off the show for that. He just has no worth. I mean, I don't think this Sting storyline needs Ric Flair. I know their history from decades ago. Cool. If you're a territory guy and you're into that, then awesome. I just don't think that's a majority of the AEW audience. I really don't. I don't think the Sting last ride needs Ric Flair by his side. The guy was washed up as a wrestler 15 years ago, but he was washed up even as a manager like 5 years ago. I just do not need Ric Flair in AEW. Logan Paul, again, regardless of what your thoughts are on him as a person, and that's completely understandable. And I'm not even saying, Del Rio's a awful person, but he has value to WWE. No, he's an awful person. And I'm not just saying bring people in just because they have value. CM Punk being a great example. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but his own behavior kind of created the situation he's currently in where WWE might not want to touch him right now. If he didn't exit AEW the way that he did and he left on great terms, he would have been welcomed back to WWE immediately. But they might not have interest right away because they realize he's a hothead and he has some baggage and whatnot that he's got to work through before he comes back and whatnot, especially even with WWE themselves. So it's not always about what the worth is, but I just have I have no desire to see Ric Flair on AEW television at all. Logan Paul isn't my favorite WWE superstar, but he comes in, does his job very well, has great matches, and he has value to WWE. Ric Flair does not. To any company, really, at this point. I'm not saying he should go away forever, but as a regular on the show every week for the next 4 or 5 months is ridiculous. Chris's second question, AEW, WWE, and even Impact to put on some strong pay-per-views this year. Can you name me your 5 favorite pay-per-views so far this year? Wow. Yeah, that's tough. Impact is a weird one because I think all of their shows have been great. I don't think I would put any of them in a top 5 over WWE's or AEW's because WWE's have just been on another level this year. I think WWE kind of takes the cake with most of them, although AEW has a couple bangers in there too. I would put Forbidden Door in there. All Out might have been their... Revolution was a really good show. I'm trying to think. Revolution was a really good show. Revolution was a great show. Double or Nothing was very forgettable. Forbidden Door was an excellent show. They had All In. I mean, that wasn't their best show. It was their biggest show, but not their best show. All Out was actually really good, and Wrestle Dream might have been one of their best shows too. So I'll probably for a top 5 in no particular order. I'll go Wrestle Dream. I'll go Forbidden Door. And then 3 from WWE. I would say, do we count Mania? Because Night 2 wasn't great, but Night 1 was amazing. So it's weird. I would probably go Elimination Chamber. I know I was there for that, so I'm biased. But that was a really great show. It was probably one of their best B shows ever, if not in a long time. Elimination Chamber. Mania I would put up there because Night 1 was just untouchable. And Night 2, even if it wasn't awful, but a lot of odd booking decisions, obviously, and still some great matches. Mania, Elimination Chamber, and Backlash. And I really liked the Night of Champions was good, Money in the Bank was a great show, But that Backlash Puerto Rico crowd, I mean, that was just wild. So I got to go those 3 shows, Wrestle Dream and Forbidden Door. And then honorable mentions would be Money in the Bank and All Out for best shows of the year as well. In no particular order, like I said. His next question was the Kenny Omega versus MJF match on Saturday a business success or a business mistake? I don't think it was really either. I mean, I know it didn't draw the ratings they were hoping for. They were up against the MLB playoffs, but they didn't do it for a big rating, I don't think. It was honestly more of a storytelling thing where, yeah, you can do the match in a couple months on a bigger show. You could even do it at fucking World's End. But it wouldn't have made as much sense in the sense that the reason they did it on Saturday was so Omega could attempt to break MJF's record. If they thought about this a while ago, then maybe they could have done it. I mean, it's not even like they could have done it at Full Gear because that's after he breaks the record, so who cares? They had to do it on that show. It made more sense, like with Gunther and Gable a couple months ago, to do a title defense right before they break the record. And then he breaks the record after beating the person who previously held the record. Gunther's not beating the Honky Tonk Man, although that would have been entertaining. But still, with MJF, that was the last possible show that he could break the record and beating the former champion. If the record was broken on a Thursday, then they would have done the match on Dynamite. So it wasn't about, building a great rating. I mean, that would have helped. That number was disappointing for Collision last week. I mean, it did bring in more people to the building. It was not a full house. I was there, I could tell you that. And it was only probably around, 3,000-4,000 people in attendance. So it's not like they packed in 10,000 people and they did it in front of a Grand Slam type audience. I don't think it was really about being a success or a mistake. It's going to go down, and I know this doesn't matter as much as like the metrics and the numbers and selling tickets and ratings. I'm not being a mark. I get that. But it will, at the very least, I mean, it's a success in the sense it's going to go down as one of the best matches all year. The match was awesome. It was an amazing match. So if nothing else, it's not like they didn't pop a great rating. They did rush the build, but they kind of had to. They didn't really have a choice. I give AEW a lot of shit and Tony Khan a lot of shit for stuff, but they didn't really have a choice on that. You know, the attendance was what it was, but where they really thrived and succeeded was getting people talking about their match because it was one of the best matches all year, and they had an amazing match. So it was a success in that sense, and it continues one of probably their best world championship reign to date in AEW, that being MJF's. His last question here, another really interesting one. Who do you see as the complete package, or his next question, he has another one after this. Who do you see as the complete package as a pro wrestler today, MJF or LA Knight? Yeah. I think both are incredibly charismatic, but I actually find MJF the more compelling and believable main eventer of the two, as evidenced by the spectacular list of matches he has had as champion and the fact he's involved with so many storylines that he feels like a massive deal. While I like LA Knight a lot, he's not as versatile or as dynamic in the ring as MJF, or many others in the ring. Plus, MJF, in my opinion, cuts more dynamic promos and doesn't rely too heavily on one-liners and catchphrases like LA Knight does. So overall, they're both great characters, but I prefer MJF over Knight. What are your thoughts? You are right, and I love LA Knight. I love both guys. Both guys are amazing. I think LA Knight deserves a world title run in WWE just because he relies on one-liners. Doesn't mean that he, shouldn't be a world champion. Guess who else relied on one-liners? The fucking Rock. And he was, 6-time world champion? LA Knight is not The Rock. I get that. But WWE, you got to remember, in LA Knight's defense, you are right, though. I agree with your overall conclusion. It's WWE we're talking about here. A lot of people, everyone relies on one-liners. Rhea Ripley, Mommy's always on top. Rollins, Seth freaking, it's all one-liners. It's very one-dimensional. It's very annoying. But they like to have their superstars drive home the one-liners so they can buy the merchandise and they'll get behind it and they'll react to him. And LA Knight is more over than MJF. I mean, the reactions that MJF get, MJF is very over. And maybe it's just because more people are in the buildings for the WWE shows than fucking Dynamite and Collision. But LA Knight is the hotter hand right now. The overall better complete package is MJF, I would agree. He's had far better matches. I can name at least 10 great MJF matches. LA Knight's had a lot of good matches, too, across all the company he's been in, including TNA, even NWA. But he hasn't had a lot of classics. LA Knight can cut a dynamic promo. He's shown that before. He's relied a lot lately on the catchphrases and stuff because that's what's over. But he can go in there and cut a dynamic promo. That's not currently what the character is. He doesn't need to be that right now. When it comes time for him to do that, then he probably will. Right now, he does not. Even if he were to cut more dynamic promos, I would still say MJF is the better overall package as a pro wrestler. Currently, he's younger. There's that. Fucking LA Knight is old enough to probably be his dad. LA Knight's not old, but Still, I mean, he's older than MJF, a lot older than MJF. MJF is someone you can build a company around. They have. He can have amazing matches, cut great promos, connect with the crowd as a babyface or as a heel. He's always in character, which is very rare nowadays. Do a great entertaining interview. Not that LA Knight can't do these things, but I just think MJF is overall stronger in every area. So I would go MJF over LA Knight, but LA Knight is still great in his own right and also deserves a world championship run in WWE. So his last question here, why are fans so obsessed with the casual fans? I understand that in order to grow your fan base, they are a demographic that needs to be explored. But there are many fans, especially AEW haters, who brag about WWE's appeal to the casual fans, which I find hilarious since it's the only fan base they can truly appeal to nowadays. Why do people care so deeply about the casual fans? And do you feel they bring them up too much? It depends on who we're talking about here. I mean, the average fan, I like to consider myself a wrestling analyst. I write about this stuff. I explore the business aspects of the show. If I were just watching WWE as a fan or watching AEW as a fan, not doing work within the industry, if that makes sense, no, it wouldn't really, why do I give a fuck? Just watch the show and enjoy it, or you can analyze it, what AEW, you're playing armchair booking here, and that's fine. Everyone does that. I did that before I started really doing work within wrestling and whatever. I get it. But yeah, people do focus on it too much. That stuff is important. Your question is, why are fans so obsessed with it? I would agree with that. Are they not important? They are. You even said yourself they are. They are, because I think WWE, you said, oh, that's all WWE caters to nowadays. I wouldn't say that's completely true, because I think there's a lot of people that watch WWE that are not casual fans that have enjoyed the product a lot this year, and they're not casual fans, and WWE may appeal to them right now, and they have, but listen, their business is also hotter than it's been in a very long time. So if it's working, it fucking works. Maybe AEW can benefit from catering more to a casual fan and not assuming that everyone knows the wrestling history of what happened in CMLL or fucking New Japan from 10 years ago. Some of this stuff is cool, but I don't give a fuck about it usually, and I can only imagine a casual fan tuning in for the first time is what the fuck is going on here? I just don't care. I feel like I could show anyone WWE right now, not that they would get into it immediately, but they can enjoy it. They can go to a WWE show and enjoy it. I could take them to an AEW show and they would enjoy it, but I went to Collision last week and it was all matches. Not a lot of promos. They had that one great video package for MJF and Omega, the condensed version, I think, from the one that aired on Rampage the night before, but it was just a lot of matches. And that's fun, and there's a lot of squashes, but I'm I think a casual fan, if I'm bringing someone that doesn't watch wrestling regularly or hasn't watched it in a long time, would like more character stuff and get into it, and WWE does that in spades by creating this environment with their shows. AEW has it too, but for a casual fan, it's important to kind of cater to them too. Your point was, do fans obsess over that too much? Yes, they do, and probably shouldn't really worry about it, especially if you have no control over it. Who cares? They are important. It's the same thing with the ratings. People obsess over that shit. They're not important. They're very important. To me and you, are they important? Probably not. To the most wrestling fans, casual or otherwise, no, they're not. So maybe don't obsess over it, but they're still important. No L from Facebook, who should be MJF's next rival? Everybody. He's got a bunch. Samoa Joe, Wardlow, Hobbs, Jay White at Full Gear. If you're asking who's next after Jay White at Full Gear, probably Joe. Wardlow, I think, is a great option, but they need to build him up a little bit more. The video package they aired for him last week I thought was great. Hobbs also needs to be built up more, so probably Joe. But I just can't imagine Joe getting another one-on-one opportunity and losing unless he wins. Or if it's a four-way or a chamber type match where it's 5 or 6 people in there, which would be cool. Throw in Omega too. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably say Joe, but maybe just all of them, a four-way. I know we just got to the Double or Nothing, but this would be a different dynamic with everyone coming from MJF's title. It's not about the 4 pillars or whatever. Maybe even a 5-way or a 6-way match. I wouldn't be, upset with either one of those either. Their next question, do you think AEW is losing it with all these past WWE wrestlers, a.k.a. signing Ric Flair? No, I think AEW's fine. They obviously have their issues and the shit they need to work on. They haven't really signed a lot of ex-WWE people lately that I'm are you fucking kidding me? The Ric Flair thing is one thing. I don't know that they signed him, but he is making appearances. Obviously, I don't know if he's officially all elite, but if the idea is that he is sticking around, that's embarrassing. That's fucking stupid. I said that before. He has no value to that company at all. Adds nothing to the storyline. I don't care about Ric Flair at this point as a manager, as whatever, as an on-screen regular character. That goes for any company. It's just many years too late. But they're not losing it in terms of they're making these WCW-esque bad booking decisions by bringing in too many people. They have, and some of those people might be nearing or eyeing the exit. But that hasn't killed their business lately. I think their recent shows have been good. They're not bad. They're not, overly amazing. I still prefer the WWE product in terms of not even storylines, but like MJF, the MJF stuff is great. Some of the women's stuff in AEW is also quite good. WWE has their work cut out for them too. But AEW business-wise could be hotter right now. That's true. And I don't think their biggest issue is signing ex-WWE people at this current moment, including Flair. One, I don't think is signed, and two, they haven't really signed a lot of people lately anyway, so it's, it is what it is. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on Ritland, also on YouTube, on Real Honesty with John Ritland, so check out his work. He's great. His first question was, now that we're nearing the end of the year, what are a few matches that you felt weren't appreciated enough? And on the flip side, what are a few matches that you felt were overhyped? It's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you. I have a great memory, but there's so many matches. I honestly feel like I can't think of many in WWE that I thought were underappreciated. I mean, there were so many great ones at Mania alone that you could probably say. I mean, I think, might not be a great example. This might be a hot take. I think Cody and Roman was an amazing match. The only reason people really shit on it, and it's not going to be the match of the year, is because of the outcome. The execution of the outcome was awful. 95% of that was great. Was it a wrestling masterpiece? No, but the crowd was ultra hot for it. They were into it. They told a story, had great suspense. The atmosphere was electric. Didn't have to be fucking Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. But I feel like that match doesn't get appreciated enough because of that, and understandably so. I feel like this question is more driven towards AEW, because AEW, the issue, not even really an issue, but they have so many great matches that a lot of them get lost in the shuffle. And in comparison to others, they might just be good, when in WWE, they would be amazing, if that makes sense. I don't know what that would be. The only overhyped one I can really think of was the Anarchy in the Arena. I think that shit is terrible. Maybe not you, John. I know you don't like that stuff either. I thought that shit is just awful. It was better this year than last year, but just the overall concept sucks. The Stampede, that garbage, it's just a fucking mess. I wish they would stop doing that nonsense. I know they want to cater to John Moxley, and he wants to, no, it's fucking dumb. It's stupid. We just see so many hardcore matches, and they're just all the same in all of these companies, but specifically AEW. I would go overhyped. Anarchy in the Arena from Double or Nothing. I just think that shit is awful. And then weren't appreciated enough, maybe Cody and Roman. Probably a hot take, but that's just my opinion. His second question, so both AEW and WWE did Halloween-themed matches for their women within a 3-day period, Collision and Raw. Which do you feel was better and why? I mean, I guess we're not including Halloween Havoc, but of the two, definitely Hikaru Shida and Abaddon, which I didn't think I would say. Chelsea Green and Natalya just sucked. I like the Trick or Street fights, I do, but the crowd did not care. Maybe it was just the people involved, but the match itself was a mess. Chelsea Green dropping a pumpkin on her head, that was awful. And I like Chelsea Green a lot, but that was just stupid. Her recent work has been great, but that was a really bad spot. The overall match sucked. I thought Shida and Abaddon really made the most of the stipulation and had a fun match. I don't care about Abaddon at all. I just don't think she's that great, and I think the character is just stupid. But, they went in there and had a really, really good match with Shida. They've worked well in the past. The crowd went nuts for the pumpkin spot. They beat the fuck out of each other. So I'd probably go with their match over the Chelsea Green Natalya one from Raw. At Eric Beeston from Twitter, Eric's question, strictly opinion, who is the best spooky/scary/horror-based character in wrestling history? Does not have to be the most enduring character because that one is pretty obvious. I mean, I think that one, it would be The Undertaker. I feel like The Undertaker is the only obvious, not the only obvious answer, but not only for the fact that he is the, creepy character, he was around for 30 years, had the longevity, build from, Dead Man's Valley, whatever it was, Death Valley. And then just also the fact of the backstory with Kane. I think that sounds like something you would see in a Friday the 13th movie or a Halloween movie where, this guy killed his brother, attempted to kill him, didn't know he was still alive. The dad's in the picture, their adopted father with Paul Bearer, blah, blah, blah. Kane comes in and they feud and he refuses to fight him. That's movie-esque stuff, and it made for a great storyline. They ended up getting ridiculous with it from that point forward, but it was still one of the all-time great WWE storylines and feuds was Undertaker and Kane. So I think it would have to be Taker or Kane. If it's not them, then I honestly would probably go Bray Wyatt. And any iteration of Bray was great. I'm thinking The Fiend they fucked it up from a booking standpoint, obviously. But, like, the thought that went into that mask and, like, the character development he was doing with it to explain why he became that way with the Firefly Funhouse. Like, I don't know if we've ever seen that sort of effort put into a character before for something like that, with the mask and everything, aside from maybe Mick Foley, Mankind, stuff like that. I would probably go Bray Wyatt, because not only did he have success with that character, I mean, yeah, he lost a lot, but he also won 2 world titles, sold a lot of tickets, and sold a lot of merchandise, and was really over, and people loved that version of Bray Wyatt. But Bray Wyatt was always over, really, from the moment he arrived in the WWE main roster. That initial character of his, again, as the cult, the creepy cult character that he was playing in mid-2013, was excellent. And I would love to have seen more of that before they eventually, butchered it in 2014. But even that was great, too. And that was kind of like Waylon Mercy times 10. Like, had they done Waylon Mercy right, and if Waylon Mercy were just a bigger star, it would have been Bray Wyatt. So, probably Bray Wyatt. If it's not, the obvious would be Undertaker or Kane. But I'm going to go Bray Wyatt, just because I thought the elements that he put into his character, and it wasn't, Taker was a more one-dimensional version of Bray Wyatt. We got backstory with Bray Wyatt, cutting the promos. They didn't always mean anything. But I feel like a WWE Studios production explaining the background of the Wyatt family at a certain point in the mid-2010s would have been perfect. They never ended up doing that, but that would have been awesome. You throw in the faction he had and everything, it was just magical, and everyone really liked it. So probably Bray Wyatt, actually. At noob_n_co.tv from Twitter, their question was, your thoughts on NWA saw win over the weekend, their latest pay-per-view. Do you think that Matt Cardona is the next opponent for EC3 for the NWA World's Championship? I thought it was a disappointing show. I don't really know what I was expecting, but I've said this in my reviews. I've really enjoyed Power the last couple of months, which I have not said in a very long time. The show has largely just been an afterthought for years now. But they've improved the quality of the show from week to week with better matches, more attention to detail, consistent storytelling, stuff like that in the last couple of months. And then the pay-per-view happened, and it was basically their version of Extreme Rules, which I get. But like, a lot of the stipulations sucked. They had a lot of matches that were just fucking awful. The main event was not exciting at all. It was very boring. The crowd did not care. Way too many matches, too long of a show. Not really much to write home about. NWA 75 had some really good matches and some great title changes. We did not get that on this show. It was an improvement over the Tyrus era. Can't get much worse than that with him as world champion. But the main event we got with Tom Latimer and EC3 was far from a barn burner. Let's put it that way. So not a great show at all. Is Matt Cardona next in line for EC3? Definitely. I mean, it looks that way. He was complaining on Saturday. He was all over that show, and he was like, oh, I never got my rematch for the championship. And even though he fucking did twice, he got it in a triple threat, which I think he was pinned in, and a singles match against Tyrus. And he lost both matches, by the way. So he has gotten a rematch before, but they're going to do this match like it's WWE Superstars in 2019. But Matt Cardona, I mean, I guess it's better than Superstars in 2011 with Tyrus and Brodus Clay and Trevor Murdoch and whatever, I guess. Or Matt Cardona. But anyway, Matt Cardona appears to be next in line for a shot at NWA World Heavyweight title. Does he win? Probably not, but it's a logical match to do, I suppose. Their next question, non-wrestling related, is the MCU getting a reboot? If so, what is the direction for some of the characters moving forward? Spider-Man might team up with Miles Morales, and for Hulk, we might get a Planet Hulk story or the Immortal Hulk story in the MCU. I just saw a story, I don't think this is related to your question, I don't think this is why you asked this. I just saw a story like literally right before I started recording about how they might use some of the original Avengers in an upcoming Avengers movie, like Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson. Like, that'd be fucking awful. Like, they had this great payoff in Endgame, in Infinity War or whatever. Why would you bring them back? I just think that'd be ridiculous. So I hope they don't do that. I mean, yeah, I could see the reboot happening. I've seen people speculate maybe that's what Secret Wars is all about. Coming up after the Kang Dynasty movie, that last Avengers movie they announced, that might be what it's used for, to kind of reset the MCU and start from scratch with new actors in these roles. I don't really care to see that. I feel like it hasn't been long enough for them to do that. But then again, we got like 3 different Spider-Men in the span of like 6 years, so whatever, I guess. I don't really care to see that personally. I would just keep on doing what they're doing, but I mean, that's not necessarily true. What they've been doing has not been great. There's just not a lot of synergy, it seems like, and nothing really connects, which is fine. I guess they're kind of doing their own stories and stuff and introducing new names. I don't know. It's kind of just a jumbled up mess right now. Jumbled up mess is the MCU. A reboot, I'm just not high on the idea, but it might be inevitable, and they might use Secret Wars as that opportunity, like I said. So that's what they do. More power to them. Maybe it works out. Maybe it's interesting. So far, I'm not really sold on it, but time will tell. At Ewagu91 from Twitter, their first question was, do you think that Drew McIntyre will win the World Heavyweight Championship this Saturday? No, I don't, and I think that'll add to his heel turn. I wouldn't complain if he did. Rollins, when he gets serious, is great. The goofy Seth freaking Rollins thing is awful, acknowledging the theme song, having the crowd sing it constantly. I mean, it was bad enough with Jericho after a certain time. With Rollins, he's getting to that territory if he's not there already. It's just obnoxious. McIntyre winning would be great. I think he loses and then either snaps that night, afternoon, whatever, or soon after. So I think Rollins retains. But Drew and Rollins, I'm looking forward to more than anything else on that show. I'm looking forward to Knight and Roman. But McIntyre and Rollins, we know can have a great match, and they've built up a great story too, which I'm looking forward to. His second question, did you see or do you see JD joining Judgment Day? That being JD McDonough, and he says, hey, the group is the same thing abbreviated into that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, is he officially part of Judgment Day already, though? They kind of act like he is, although I think I missed a chapter because they were teasing tension with him after Payback when he cost them the tag titles, and now he's back on the same side as them. So I'm not really sure what's going on with JD McDonough. He's in there losing matches and shit, and that's fine, but you would think he's a part of the Judgment Day. Is he in or is he not? They need to make this stuff clear. Like with the Jimmy Uso thing, is he in the Bloodline or is he not in the Bloodline? I thought he wasn't. They said that he wasn't. Now that he is, I mean, they need to explain this stuff a little bit better. At E13A, what do you know about the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise game, whatever? So I played the game, actually, when it first came out in 2014. It was our first day back at college. I had just moved into my dorm, sophomore year. That night, hadn't even finished unboxing, my roommate turns off the lights, opens up my computer. This sounds weird. And then he fires up the game, and then we start playing the game. I mean, I'm not really into that sort of shit, so I was freaked out by it. I think that was the only time I ever played. I think that was it. I think he showed it to me that one time. That was it, and we moved on. Alexis loves that stuff. She loves, I don't know if she played the games, but she watched a lot of YouTube videos about it when it first came out 10 years ago. Like Markiplier and people like that. So we watched like the lore video before seeing the movie. We watched Markiplier videos before watching the movie yesterday. I liked the movie. I thought it was actually pretty good. It wasn't really a horror movie. It wasn't scary at all, but I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but I thought I liked it actually. It was worth watching. It's on Peacock. If you got Peacock for the WWE pay-per-views, you can watch it for free there. Yeah, that's really what I know about it. I can't get into all the lore of what I know and what I don't know, but I watched a lot of videos on it, and I watched the breakdown about the movie right afterwards, so I know more than I did a week ago. I'll tell you that much. Second question, do you remember SmackDown vs. Raw 2008's 24/7 mode? I do vaguely. So here's a funny story about that. The first wrestling game that I owned myself, and I've played a lot of wrestling games before becoming a wrestling fan, interestingly, but the first game that I owned was SVR 08, but it was for the Wii. I rented it one weekend soon after getting into wrestling, loved the game, then ended up getting it for my birthday like a week later. So then I got it for the Wii, though, because I love the Wii. I don't think I had a PS2 at that point. I didn't have any other, I mean, my brother had an Xbox, but I would typically just play the Wii. So we had trouble playing the story mode, my brother and I, my younger brother and I, playing the story mode, trying to unlock all the legends, because I looked up all the ways to unlock them, and nothing was fucking working. We did the story mode forever. I don't think it was called 24/7 mode on the Wii. It was called something else, like maybe career mode. I don't remember. That might have been 09 and later. But we kept doing it, and nothing was fucking working. I'm like, why is this not working? And I was so bothered by it. And eventually, after a certain point, I tried it out again, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I looked back at the cheat codes. All of the cheat codes were for the PS2 version and the Xbox version. It's not the same thing as the Wii. You don't unlock the characters the same way in the Wii. Like, you would say, go to buy these. I'm like, how do we buy these people? I can't find what you're talking about. And then eventually, after like 3 or 4 months, we figured out, there's actually a different way to do it for the Wii than there is for Xbox and PS2. Like on the Wii, you had to turn your superstar clean or face or heel or whatever, and then put them on a different brand, whatever. So we did end up buying SVR 08 for the PS2. We rented it a bunch because it is a very different game. Same roster, but like different match types you can do. The SVR 08 Wii game was extremely limited because it was the first Wii game they did for an SVR game, a WWE game. They did 08 on the Wii, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013, I think, were all on the Wii. And then everything after that was not on Nintendo anymore. But yeah, we did do 24/7 mode in 08, but not a lot, because I think that was, by the time I finally got 08 on the PS2, was around the time that 09 came out, and I just started playing that. And same thing, I mean, 09 on the Wii was a little bit better. But yeah, I remember it very vaguely. Not a lot, but vaguely. Your third question is interesting. What is John Cena's worst year? Worst year? I mean, it would probably be one of the recent years, right? I mean, he hasn't really been active the last couple of years. So, and he hasn't really done anything. So it would probably be one of the last 5 years. I mean, I'm just trying to think, like 02, he was still getting his feet wet. 03, 04, 05, 06, like those were his prime years, so I can't really say any of those. Like he was still having great matches in 08, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 he was, 2014, 2015 he was one of his best years. 2016 was great. 2017 he even had that great match at the Rumble with AJ Styles, so I can't even say that one. Not 2018, because he was doing some fine stuff earlier on in the year in 2018. He was around a decent amount in 2018. Maybe 2019. Probably 2019, because he did nothing. He may have wrestled 1 or 2 Raw and SmackDown matches in 2019. And then did Dr. Thugonomics at Mania, but didn't wrestle. And then showed up maybe one more time for a Raw reunion show that summer. And then that was it. Maybe 2020, but I like the Firefly Funhouse match, so I can't say that was his worst year, although he didn't really do anything that year either. 2020, I like the Roman Reigns match. And then 2022, maybe 2022, because he didn't do anything. He came back for his anniversary show that summer, and then he wrestled one match on SmackDown. So probably 2019 or 2022. This year, I mean, the Theory match, I would probably go with this year if he didn't come back for this most recent stint, which I've enjoyed. The Theory match was disappointing. He put him over. No one gave a fuck, and the build sucked. So it would have been this year if it wasn't for his recent SmackDown stint. And then his last question about another very interesting one. Have you heard about Jon Moxley wanting change in safety protocols for pro wrestling? Yes, I did. This was a very big topic when he came out and talked about it. I think maybe late last week he did an interview talking about how the protocol for concussions and stuff has to change and what he would do, what he would institute and whatever. And he made a lot of great points, and he's right. Something does need to change, especially with AEW. WWE has their own protocol in place. And sometimes they call matches when the wrestlers aren't actually really that hurt, but they do it out of precaution. Like when Daniel Bryan, I remember, I think they thought he was concussed back in 2013 in a match on Raw with Randy Orton. And they called off the match. And he was supposed to win that match in a big way. And he was really upset because he was fine. And he was like, no, I got to keep going. He got in Triple H's face afterward. Like, it was a pretty big deal. But they do that stuff because they, first of all, don't want to be liable. But second of all, not that they 1,000% care about the safety of the performers, because there's probably a lot of scenarios where that's not the case. But with stuff like that, they need to be extra careful because they know it's a publicly traded company, a lot of eyes on them. They would rather be safe than sorry, usually. AEW, not that that's not the case, but it seems like there's a lot of instances where people get hurt and they just keep the fucking match going. I remember Alex Reynolds got knocked out during a match and they dragged him over to the side of the ring. It was just ridiculous. Like, they were still doing the match as opposed to checking him out. He was just laying there motionlessly. It was bad. It was really bad. They need to fix that shit. That was years ago, and it just happened again with Jon Moxley. They need to figure their shit out, because whatever Moxley... They needed to figure out the shit with Moxley from a couple of weeks ago, but they need to listen to what he's saying, because that's one of their biggest stars. And if he's out there talking about, like, oh, something needs to change, then something's got to change. He's out there burying your doctor and your referee, specifically your referee, and nothing's going to change after that. Like, that's pretty embarrassing. So I'm glad he spoke out about it, and he just has nothing to lose because he knows he's not going to be punished. He's not going to be fired. He's one of the biggest stars in the company. And also, he's right. So they got to change something because that shit is just embarrassing. But that's going to do it, guys, for episode 518 of #AskGSM here today for November 1st, 2023. Thank you guys for checking out the show. I appreciate it and sending in your great questions. If you want to send in a question for next week's show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the month of November. We'll be back next week with 5 at 19 on November 8th. Till then, have a great rest of your week. I'm MJF Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.